Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashdin, doctor, your habit coach, and today with us for a second time we have Lilya. Now this is part 2. We are going to be talking about trauma, and I think it would make sense for you to listen to the first part before you listen to this one. So go check it out and then listen to this episode. You know, Lilya, I get tons of people writing in saying I suffer from low self-esteem. What can I do about it? Is there a trauma answer to this?
It's a tough road.
Okay.
It depends, again, it depends on the person. There are many things that can be done. There is always hope. There are always solutions. Trauma does not have to be a life sentence. We can absolutely heal from that. And whoever's listening, who's in a dark space, you can get better. If I can be sitting here, I didn't think I would live past 30. And joking about it, right? I didn't think I would live past 30. I'm 36. If I can sit here and I can now help people, anybody can make it through whatever it is. So I think having hope is super important. Now, for the low self-esteem, it's a process. It's a journey. I think one of the most important things is working on that connection to self. Really learning to reconnect to ourselves, listening to ourselves, understanding what it is that we like, that we don't like, surrounding ourselves with people who remind us of our worth. I think that's been really important in my own journey, to have amazing friends. Whenever I felt like a pile of poop, they would be, Lilya, you're insane, you're amazing, and these are your qualities. Because we don't heal in isolation. We need these mirrors, and I think our friendships are a great portal to healing as well. And it's a day-by-day journey. And there will be times where you feel like, yeah, I'm confident and I'm rocking it. And then the next day you're like, oh, I feel miserable. Oh, I don't feel so confident anymore, right? And I think that's also one of the things, is that there is no one-time solution to solve the thing. It's a process. It's a journey. So some days will be what they are and others will be different. But there are ways, I think also figuring out what you like, what you enjoy doing, what you're really good at also helps with rebuilding that sense of self and appreciation for yourself. So there are many different ways to do it. And I think different people need to find what works for them.
Fantastic. So Lilya, when somebody comes to you, for example,
Yeah.
right? Is there a journey that you take them through? Is there a process that you take them through? Now, I know you do one-on-ones, you do things in groups. What is the difference between these? How does it pan out?
Okay.
Now, I know you'll say that there's no one way of doing everything.
I'm the worst podcast guest ever because I don't have any direct answer. Because life is,
No, so take us through a story.
Okay, I'll take you through a story. So basically, you would come to me, okay, as a human who is where they are in their journey. And I think the first step is always, hey, I would get to know you step, right? So we would go into a bit of detail about why you're seeking me out, right? Why you want support, because it's an action that you're taking towards something. And then we would obviously talk about where you are today, what's happening in your life, what prompted you on this journey, what are the things you'd like to shift or that have been bothering you. And so, all this data, all this information is being shared. And when I receive this information, I have 20 years of experience. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is there. I can already see the story behind the stories. Because one thing we all have is stories. And I would love for us to talk about that afterwards if you or I remember. But so we have this discovery session, and then generally it's a 3-month process because it's a good enough time to get moving in a direction. So I would say my role or my responsibility is to be a catalyst on this person's journey. They do the work. And for me, that's the most important part of healing, is that you understand how you can reparent yourself, how you can regulate yourself, how you can support yourself. That doesn't mean you become an isolated individual and we're all interconnected, interdependent, right? So that's a given. But we will start from that point, and we will journey for generally 12 sessions. And that journey will look different depending on who's coming for what. But essentially what we're doing on that journey is bringing you back home, back to yourself. And I'm just acting as a channel, a conduit for that reconnection to happen. So that when you and I are done, you're like, okay, I got this. Whatever happens, I got it. And you have that, you're reconnected to yourself. So that's what happens in one-on-one, and it's highly personalized, depends on the person. And then groups. Groups are, they're such a huge catalyst for healing because we have collective trauma, we have intergenerational trauma, we have cultural trauma. So when you're in a group,
You just thrown out different kinds of trauma. Huh? I hope you're going to
No.
explain what those are.
I'm not explaining anything. Google is our best friend. Uncle Google. Yes, I can get into that, of course.
Otherwise, you get a fatka.
A fatka. Okay. Well, if this were another podcast. Okay, back to the topic. Wait, I need to refocus now.
So you were talking about the different kinds of trauma, and in a group setting,
yeah. So
all these come out.
Yeah. So when you come as an individual, you come with your own stuff, right? And then when you're 20 individuals, everyone is coming with their own stuff, and you're all meeting in this one moment in life in a circle. So the circle formation is really important in the healing modality because it's the only shape that is equal. And everyone,
so you'll actually stand in a line or sit in a line.
So we're either standing in circle, we're sitting in circle, because in the circle there's no hierarchy.
Okay.
So I'm also part of the circle, and we're all there, and we can all see each other.
So it's not that it starts from Lilya because she's sitting there and we go clockwise and nothing like that.
So it does sometimes because I have to model. See, a lot of people have never done this kind of stuff before. So I always have to go first and kind of model, right? Which is fine because I've been doing this for years. I don't have an issue with that. But it is never about me. In that space, it's about the collective, and in that collective, about each individual. So again, every circle will look different. Why? Because the people who are showing up are different. The people and the stories they're showing up with are different. And it's mind-blowing even to me after so many circles that every circle, the people who are meant to be there are there. And there are crossovers in the stories. Oh, I shouldn't move. There are crossovers in the stories, right? And there are similarities. And someone's experience is someone else's fear. And it always works out that everyone is just being a giant mirror for the other. And that's the power of group healing, is that we're all mirroring each other's stuff. And so the circles in themselves look different each time. So sometimes I would use, oracles or the tarot as a way, because it's a great medium to say very difficult direct messages to people without them taking it personally, because essentially you're picking your own cards. So you're giving that message to yourself.
It wasn't me.
Don't shoot them. I'm just deciphering it for you, but it's your own message to you, basically. Sometimes there's sharing happening. Sometimes we do this compassion circle where there are questions that are asked. And if, you've experienced that kind of trauma, you step into the circle, which is, Ashdin, it's insane when you look at people standing in a circle far away from each other. And then you start asking these questions and you're like, hey, and you go direct. You're not starting like, hey, did you have coffee yesterday? Step inside the circle. No, right? We go past all the fluff and we go directly to the heart of the matter. So you'll be like, hey, if you've ever experienced domestic abuse, step inside the circle. And you're literally with strangers, right? And you see people stepping inside the circle. If you've ever experienced sexual abuse, step inside the circle. And so you ask all of these really direct, difficult questions. And what you realize is that most of the people there have experienced all of the same things as you. And just that as an experience, such a unifying factor. Doesn't matter if you're the CEO of a company or a cleaning lady or whoever you are, right? When you come in that circle, you're just part of a circle. And it's a very unifying factor to realize that so many other people have been through what you've been through. And so that is one of the greatest powers of healing circles, is that your story is mirrored back to you and reflected in so many different ways. And even if you're not getting direct, because sometimes we do this thing about stepping, someone claims the carpet. And
what does that mean?
I don't want to say too much because it's important for these circles for people who come to also get the experience. But essentially you claim your place in the center of the circle. That means you have stuff that you want to work on and you need assistance.
My time right now.
It's my time and I'm claiming it, which is part of claim the carpet, right?
Fantastic.
And so
that's empowering in itself.
It is. And then that's where I journey with you, through whichever way. It can involve very different things, through movement, chanting, sitting, listening, talking, reenacting. There are many different ways we do this, depending on, again, the person. That's one of the beauties of experience. When you have 20 years of experience, you can adapt to the moment. And then we do like deep work. And even if you don't come and step inside the circle and claim the carpet, you're still healing, which is one of the beautiful things about...
Because you're seeing what the other people are going through. You're learning from them.
It's resonant. We are energy beings. So when we're in a circle, our energy is also circulating. And we are resonating with one another. We are co-regulating each other. So... it's also just you being there, you're healing, whether you're conscious of it or not. Something in you is healing through that process.
Can you describe the feeling?
When
you're in a circle like that.
As a facilitator, you mean, or as a participant?
Either or. Like, what does it feel like? Like you're saying, we're energetic beings, right? We're picking up this energy. What does it feel like?
It's difficult to put in words because it's such a strong feeling, but I think the best word I have for it would be love. You can feel the depth of love and unity. And that actually separation is such utter bullshit. It's the grand, scheme illusion. It's bullshit.
Yeah. It's ego that dissolves, right?
It's crazy.
There's no me, there's no you, there is love.
And you should see people and they've spent 1 hour, 2 hours together.
It's complete strangers.
The connection that they have after these circles, it's insane. It's insane because you've been through such a deep experience together that you feel closer to these people than people you've maybe known for 10, 15 years, So, yeah, I mean, for me, the future of healing, and actually the present moment and the future of healing, is community healing. I don't think any healing is complete without community healing. And I do not believe we can heal from trauma in isolation, especially when I was talking about cultural trauma, intergenerational trauma. We carry stuff from our parents, our grandparents, ancestors.
What do you mean by we carry? Can you explain it a little bit more?
Hello. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet talks to Azan Firoz Said. He runs the hub in Bangalore and they discuss how he's enabling next-level creator collaboration. On Shunyavan, Sheila Aditya is in conversation with Piyush Ranjan, the CTO at CoverFox. He gives us some insights on the insurance industry in India and how technology plays a part. On Smarter with Sid, Siddharth talks about delaying gratification and how it may or may not work in one's favor. On Varta Lab, Akash and Naveen are joined by content creator and influencer Saloni Gore. They talk about how content creation happened to her character Nazma Api, and some hilarious Delhi Bombay stories. And on the Ideas Project, Anupam is joined by Mahavir Chopra, founder Beshak.org. They discuss the importance of insurance and how it's growing in India. Hey everybody, as you know, we've been beating the horse for merchandise and you should go and get it now before we refresh our collections. And what's there right now won't be available forever. So go get it now. You can go to ivmpodcast.com, go click on the store link and you'll be able to find the store, or go to beyondfollow.com/IVM and you can go directly over there and pick up the merchandise. Also, remember, if you're following this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Social media helps, but not as much of word of mouth. But if you're a social media fellow, then go to our IVM podcast handle on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn and follow us there. Also, please do remember to check out all of our different YouTube channels. We have a ton of them now. You can go to ivmpodcast.com/YouTube where we maintain a list of all of these channels. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors for this week: TransUnion Civil, Boat Lifestyle, Checkpoint Software, Small Case, and Intel vPro. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Obviously we all come from somewhere, right? And in my case, I have parents, who they had parents and so on and so forth, right?
I hope everyone in their case had parents. Yeah, they all have parents.
Yeah, but not everyone has taken that responsibility to be a parent to the child that they brought into the world.
So it's not genetic, it's you're talking about having lived with a parent.
No. I'm talking about you come from somewhere.
Correct.
And from that somewhere, there are things that have happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, as a man, you carry your own kind of trauma that as a woman, I probably won't understand or won't be able to relate to. As a woman, I carrying collective trauma that women have been through, throughout time. And it resonates very deeply with me because I am also a woman. So if you look at the family unit, you come from your parents, right? Your parents have their own life experiences. They had their own stuff in life, right? Their parents had their own stuff. So all of that is when we say we transmit things, right? We're constantly transmitting things. And a lot of your behavior is learned. So that trauma can also be passed through. Wait, I have to go back because it reminds me of this. I did work with this really prominent neurotherapist, psychiatrist in Paris. And why I'm sharing this is because for me, I was mind blown at the time. This was maybe 10 years ago. And I had issues feeling grounded, feeling like I belonged anywhere and like I had roots. And part of that is my own, the fact that I'm French, that I'm Indian, that, the land I come from doesn't exist anywhere. That's my own. That's a form of trauma as well, not belonging, not feeling like I have roots. And he talked to me about this tribe in Africa. And so apparently this tribe used to, used to bury the placenta when the baby was born. The first thing they would do is take the placenta, bury it on their land. And then they would tend to the baby. Cool, why not? And one day, because of, the development of the land or whatever you want to call it, this village, these people were displaced. They were displaced to another place, which is about, whatever, let's say 30 minutes. Okay, I'm not exactly sure, but it was not too far away is what I remember. And eventually what started happening is these people started developing mental illnesses out of nowhere. They were completely fine before. And there's this African therapist who started looking into that because he was like, what is going on with these people, with this village? And what they found through research is that they had such a strong connection to the land because they were burying the placenta there, that being displaced even half an hour was having an effect on their mental health. Now, I was sitting there thinking, whoa, how wild. Because you would never think, right? Like, that connection is...
That could even be traumatic. Like, that could even be
Exactly.
something to be hurt about.
Exactly. So why I was giving you this example is because there's a lot of stuff like that we don't take into consideration that affects us, right? And so whatever's happened in your family line, whatever's happened to your parents, your grandparents, you're coming from there. So obviously you're coming with that too, mostly unconsciously. So you see a lot of times, for example, I do something called body work, which is releasing trauma from the body because trauma can get stored. It becomes physical. The emotion stagnates. It stays there. It becomes physical, stays in your fascia, in the tissues, sometimes in the bones. So when I do body work, sometimes you're dealing with your own trauma, but you're also dealing with maybe your grandmother was abused or raped or something happened to her. And that energy, that trauma, came to you. And between mothers and daughters, that's something I learned from this man who is really an extraordinary human being, is that between mothers and daughters, we transmit much more. And also, I found out not too long ago that as a woman, I have, I think, my grandmother's egg in my body, which means that technically I'm connected to my grandmother. So whatever my grandmother's experience of life has been, it's also transferred to me. So there's constantly things that are being transferred to us. We just don't know about it. And I think, Ashdin, a lot of people think about their personality as who they are, But I think if you start looking into it, you realize that a lot of that is just a lot of coping mechanisms, a lot of behaviors that were inherited from our family and family dynamics and from our trauma.
Correct.
And our family's trauma. I mean, so many families have so much trauma and they don't talk about it.
They don't talk about it, don't deal with it. They don't realize it. Like, I think I remember telling you this, that I did a TEDx talk on this, which was inherited habits,
Okay.
right? Like, you realize that you're doing the same thing because your grandparent was doing it. And you never questioned it because that's how things were done. In the same way, you inherit trauma because it was the same wound that was passed down that nobody bothered to heal along the way.
Yeah.
And I know we've had the discussion, so I'll jump in with it.
Go for it.
Is that you can decide whether the trauma ends with you or not. Right? You can decide, like, this is it. Let us end this trauma here. Let's heal from this and let's not pass it on to my next generation. Correct?
Yeah. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
And, if I had one plea for all the families out there, I would say while you're alive, please, please, please talk about all these things. Because it's so much more difficult to do when the people are not there anymore. Because there are added emotions, obviously, right? There's grief. That's another form of difficulty. So I think, I know in my family, so many times I tried to have the difficult conversations, and be like, hey, can we not sweep this under the carpet? Can we just talk about it? Because the maddening thing is that everybody in any family knows, right? Unless you're the one who's left out of the whole family drama. What we call family drama is actually family trauma. Let's be real.
Nice.
Okay? We're just making it sound cool. Any drama.
So every time you're watching a family show on TV, now you know.
It's like
I'm
drama.
not watching family drama. I'm watching family trauma. Right.
No, but really, we're model things. I mean, anyways, where model things are really unhealthy, and all of any drama you can be sure that there's trauma hiding behind it. Because honestly, the more I have healed, the more peaceful my life has become.
Correct.
And when there is drama, I'm like, I'm going in the other direction, not interested, right? So I think in families, that's where a lot of our wounding happens, and that's where a lot of our healing can happen. And I've done work with families, and it's been beautiful when you have parents and their kids sitting in the same room and people are having real, honest, hard conversations, because they're hard sometimes. There's some hard stuff that happens in
That'd
families.
be very scary, right? The first time around?
It's scary, it's uncomfortable, and you have this total stranger, in this case me, who's like, hey, you did this, I'm the mediator. I'm Switzerland in that equation, right? I want everyone to win. So
And you give
I'm
them
not
chocolate afterwards.
I wish. I want someone to give me chocolate and not your Amul gross chocolate, some actual chocolate, Ashdin. For you who, oh no, wait, let me just do this again. For those of you on this podcast who do not know, Ashdin Doctor eats some really gross Amul chocolate. Let's be clear about that. But I think definitely there's a lot of healing to be done in family units if people could just have the courage to talk about things. And I think one of the things that's been difficult for me is that I've tried relentlessly and nobody's met me there. And it's exhausting to keep saying, hey, everybody knows what shit is happening in our family. Can we just sit and acknowledge it? And one thing that I've understood is that sometimes acknowledging it is difficult. Even though it is like the biggest step to help someone heal, it's also difficult because once you acknowledge something, you have to take responsibility for it and you have to take action to change it. And that's why I also understood why it's easier to sweep things under the rug, to pretend like they don't exist, because then you don't have to question yourself. Because I've had to sit with myself and have really honest conversations with myself that have been really hard. To realize stuff about myself, to realize what my toxic behaviors were. Oh, actually, I was also unhealthy in that relationship. Oh, I was, I had issues there. Oh, I was mean, actually. Oh, I was a bit of a bully. It's not easy to look at this stuff about yourself, which is why I understand why people would prefer to drink alcohol, or go out or numb themselves with sex with people they don't care about. Whatever it is, right? I understand. But I think that if we could just talk about things, firstly, it would help so much. That would be really a great step in families if they could do that. Because the family unit is where most of our experiences happen. And then we keep replicating and modeling that in all our other relationships, So if you look at how we're relating, you can see what's happening in each family and all the drama that's happening in the family, because we're all coming from there, and we're relating in the way we, as children, we don't learn through what we're being told. We observe and we model. So the way we're behaving is actually modeled, and we've just been looking at adults and we'd be like, oh, okay, love is yelling at each other. Cool. This is what love is. And so that's how you stay in these unhealthy dynamics of, oh, well, I'm in an abusive relationship, but I'm going to stay there because this actually feels normal and safe, as opposed to being in a relationship where someone respects me.
That would be scary then, right? Imagine if your
Scary.
entire belief system around love was shouting at each other and that's how you showed love. And now somebody's taking care of you and not giving you an opportunity to scream. That is unacceptable, right? So it's interesting to understand that these are our belief systems. These are things that we believe are the way things are done. Now, I know we've added another word called belief system. Maybe that's not what you
No,
use.
it is there. I mean, our beliefs are the hardest thing to change, but they're also the key to a different life. When I'm like, oh, I believe that, and then I stop and I say, wait, do I really believe that? Because most of our beliefs are not even our own,
Oh, they're implanted.
They're implanted. In shamanism, you call it domestication. So there's a whole process throughout our whole, young life till we are able to think on our own. We've already been formatted. We've already been domesticated. What does domestication mean? It's like you obey. If you look at dogs, you tell them do this, do that, they do it. I know it sounds weird, but it's the same thing with us. Look at how parents treat their children. Oh, you do this, good boy. Do that, bad boy. Do this, if you don't do that, I'll punish you, right? So we have very similar ways of treating kids and animals in that whole process of domestication. And so you become an adult who doesn't know who, you don't know who you are. And you have all this stuff that you inherited, some of it, helpful, most of it unhelpful, and you don't know what to do with it because you're not equipped to deal with any of that, because no one has taught you how to face any of that.
So for people listening to this right now, right, if you had to give them a few exercises, a few thought exercises that they could possibly do right now at home, what would they be? Like, things that can help you at least understand the kind of trauma that you have, or maybe take a few steps towards it.
I think the first thing would be to just take a really honest look at your life, always with compassion. Always compassion and gentleness, super important in the process. But to really take a look at your life and to be honest with where you're at. And from that place of honesty, to then see what is the next step for me. It might be to seek out support, because you feel like a lot of times people feel like something is off. So if something is off, there might be something there to look at, right? So if you feel that something is off, I would say first tune in, question yourself, see where you're at in your life. Then if you feel like you need support, reach out, find someone who can support you. I would say find a professional who could support you. Not a friend, not a partner, not a parent, because there's a lot of bias in that, and probably maybe trauma also in those connections.
Yeah, like they mean well, but they don't necessarily know how to talk to you.
Exactly. And there are things that the people we love just are not equipped to deal with. And that's okay. That's not their job. There are people like me and other people whose job it is. So to seek someone out if you feel you need support. And then I think there are very simple things like, doing practices that help you spend a little bit more time with yourself. So journaling is a great tool, just actively journaling without thinking, without editing, just allowing yourself to, I call it vomit on the page, just vomit it out. Whatever it is that's turning up there, just to write it. And to see what is it that I'm writing every day, to kind of look at it and interact with it afterwards, to see what are
your... So you
your...
suggest people actually go back and see what they've written?
If you're interested in understanding and you're not just using it as an outlet, I would say vomit and then let it be, right? But if you're in this more of trying to connect and understand what is the thing that keeps coming back, then yeah, I would say look at it, because you're going to see eventually there's something you're always writing about. Then there are different practices that can really help, like, yoga, qigong, or any kind of movement, walking in nature. As silly as it sounds, helps you reconnect to yourself. Then there are ways to regulate yourself with your breath. Anything that helps you reconnect to yourself is something, a hobby that you used to love and you gave up,
Like maybe a childhood hobby. You used to play the guitar, you used to love
Yeah.
it. Maybe you used to paint, you liked it.
Yeah. And
Pick
I
that
think
up.
one of the ways that maybe something's off is, are you able to play? Are you able to be light and silly and funny? Are you able to be spontaneous, or do you feel like you always need to control everything, right? That's a clear indication, because when you're in a state of survival, you cannot play. It's just not possible.
You can't let loose.
You can't let loose, because I think one other thing that is a great indication is how much constriction, how tight are you in your body? Because trauma is also constriction, and healing is expansion and space. So yoga helps with that, creating space in the body. Breathing, conscious breathing, helps to create space in the body.
So you're not in that hunched over state. You're not in that protect me cocoon
It's
in a
a-
wall
It's
kind
a
of.
tightness, Ashdin,
Yeah.
and you can feel it the days when you're a bit stressed, or like something's bothering you. You feel it's a very subtle contraction. It's not like you're like, oh, okay. But you feel it. You don't feel expansive. You don't feel light. You don't feel alive, in sync with life. You feel kind of shut down. If you feel like you're repeating a lot of the same patterns, a lot of the same things keep happening. Oh, I keep attracting this kind of guy, or I keep doing the same kind of thing and expecting different results. Those are all signs that there's a pattern here that's come from somewhere, and we need to go understand what that is.
Very interesting. You just like spat out like lots of words of wisdom right now, because each of them are a very big topic in themselves that I would have loved to deep dive into. But I want to end this podcast in a funny.
Oh gosh, save us.
Nothing about you, don't worry. So when I went to therapy recently,
Okay.
I think a few months ago, my therapist gave me a box of crayons and she said, now I want you to draw. Now, the last time I picked up crayons was when I was in school. And picking up crayons and drawing brought back traumatic memories from school.
Wow.
I was just constantly like, somebody's going to take my brown crayon and break it. It was like things that I had completely repressed out of my brain because I was never going to pick up crayons and draw again. Was suddenly coming back. I was like, this is strange. This was supposed to calm me down, right? That's why you gave this to me to do. This is backfiring right now.
Maybe change your therapist. No, I'm joking. No, I'm joking. Do I have a second to...
Yeah, go for it.
Because this client that I'm working with, she used to love to draw, and unfortunately she's had a really difficult time, and sexual abuse has been a prominent thing in her life. And one of the things she stopped doing is drawing, is painting. She just completely disconnected from it. And so a lot of our healing process and journey together, there are many other things. I'm just giving you like a 1% here, okay? I've been suggesting to her, because a lot of the process is suggestion, invitation, never force anyone, right? Especially when you're doing trauma healing. I was like, hey, like maybe it'd be a good time to start coloring, painting, drawing again, And she was like, yeah. And I've suggested it to her, and it's okay. I mean, I'm letting it slide for now because there are other things that are more important. But it's insane the amount of resistance that is there. And resistance is also a great indication of trauma. She just hasn't been able to color and paint, which she used to love and be passionate about. It doesn't have to be more than that. Just the fact that she can't do something that she loves. I mean,
that itself is...
Yeah. There's something there that makes it so difficult to just pick up that little pencil and make a drawing.
Lilya, I love this conversation, especially because there are so many different aspects to trauma that, it's like we could do like 30 more podcasts on this, because all of us are going through this. Is actually human behavior at its, at its elements. Lilya, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. How can people get in touch with you? Where can people, reach out to you, connect with you?
On Instagram. I
Okay.
am on the platform.
What's your Instagram handle?
So it's Lilya Agape. Do I need to spell that out?
AGAPE?
Yes, Lilya Agape. I'm on Instagram. Basically, that's where people can reach me, and otherwise, WhatsApp. But that's for people who would have my number. So I have a
And
website.
we're not going to give out the number right now.
No, I am looking for a husband. Though. No, I'm joking. No, but I do have a website that's being built. It's taken many, many years because of my own trauma to even create a website. But so soon I'll also have a website to share. But for now, it's Insta.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.